Alright guys, it's late but we're not clocking out just yet. Because what's happening right now in this trade war is straight up unbelievable. We called it before. America's threats were all bark, no bite. And now, reality is proving us right. Let's be honest, China's got the upper hand and it's not even close. Trump keeps promising to bring high-tech jobs back home. EVs, semiconductors, advanced manufacturing. But there's one tiny problem. The raw materials that make those industries possible are almost all controlled by Beijing. From rare earths to graphite to lithium, China practically owns the supply chain. Here's how deep it goes. About 70% of America's rare earth imports come straight from China. For some elements like scandium, it's total dependence, 100%. These aren't optional. They're essential for things like EV motors, fighter jet magnets, and missile systems. Even if Washington somehow bought out Japan's entire stock, it wouldn't matter. Prices would go through the roof. When you lose 70% of your global source overnight, your costs explode. The real problem? The administration doesn't seem to get that their big talk shakes the markets every time they open their mouths. Last week, US stocks nosedived more than 4%. Now the charts are bouncing back, but plenty of people already got burned. And when the green candles start showing again, that's not victory. That's panic control. Trump and his inner circle are scrambling. Out of nowhere, Trump and J.D. Vance are suddenly talking about calm and reasonable dialogue with China. The same guys who spent years pushing a full-blown trade war are now begging for a peace deal. You can't make this up. Let's remember how we got here. The US kicked off the tech bans, slapped tariffs on Chinese products, and even started harassing Chinese shipping routes. And now that Beijing's fighting back, the White House looks completely lost. Trump's realizing he's cornered, and he's trying to hide it with bluster and tweets. Just look at what he wrote. President Xi had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The US wants to help China, not hurt it. That's not leadership. That's a surrender note wrapped in spin. If you're sitting in Beijing reading that, you're not intimidated. You're smiling. You can see America wobbling. So what do? You keep cutting dependence. You double down on your manufacturing edge, and you tighten control of global supply chains while Washington argues over tweets. Rare earths are just one piece of the puzzle. Without them, the US can't make advanced chips, EVs, or modern weapons at a competitive cost. That's why no major Asian supplier, not Japan, not Korea, not Taiwan, is shifting production to the US. It's just too expensive, too risky, and too late. But the real gut punch for America isn't tech, it's agriculture. In September, China's soybean imports hit a record high, nearly 13 million tons. But guess what? Not one grain came from the US, all of it came from Brazil and Argentina. Beijing has completely rerouted its supply chain, and in doing so, it's deepening ties with Latin America. The side effect? US soy prices are collapsing and farmers are feeling the pain. When the selling price falls below the cost of growing the crop, you're not farming anymore. You're losing money by the acre. And now it's happening across the board. Either thousands of farms go under, or Trump steps in with another bailout. And if Argentina can get $20 billion in support, you can bet Trump will have to shell out even more to keep American farms afloat. But every dollar of that adds straight to the national debt. We've seen this movie before. Back in 2018-2019, when China slashed US soy imports to record lows, Trump had to hand out $28 billion to keep farmers alive. Now in 2025, China isn't buying anything. Zero soybeans. That's a complete shutdown of trade, and it could last years. The next bailout won't just match the last one. It'll probably double or triple it. Meanwhile, two massive problems are squeezing every corner of the US economy. Tariffs and interest rates. Tariffs have made everything more expensive. Tractors, tools, fertilizers. While borrowing costs have gone through the roof. Trump can either hand out tax breaks or print bailout checks. But either way, the deficit's going to explode. Let's talk numbers. Cotton farmers are losing about 400 per acre. Soybean growers? Over 110 per acre in the red. And with China out of the market, those losses are only stacking higher. It's not sustainable. It's a ticking time bomb. And then comes the quiet killer, debt. Even though the Fed has started trimming rates, it doesn't help farmers much. Their loans run for years, some even decades. And those interest payments? They've hit $33 billion in 2025 alone. That's $33 billion just to service debt, before a single seed is planted. So while Trump tweets about helping China and winning the trade war, the reality is the opposite. China isn't losing ground. It's tightening its grip. It's securing resources, dominating supply chains, and expanding influence in regions America once controlled. Meanwhile, the US is burning cash to keep farmers alive, drowning in higher costs, and watching its industries fall behind. The trade war that was supposed to make America strong again has done the exact opposite. It's exposed just how fragile the system really is. And while Washington keeps pretending everything's fine, Beijing's quietly building the future. One supply chain, one trade deal, and one US failure at a time. Interest payments alone now eat up a huge slice of the cost, around 7%, and that's before we even touch the chaos caused by Trump's tariffs or China refusing to buy American crops. Farmers are getting hit from both ends, squeezed by higher expenses and falling profits. And it's no wonder Trump had to pull a major U-turn. The White House can't afford to let both agriculture and high-tech industries crash together. That would be a disaster on every level. And here's the real kicker. If American companies can't bring production back home because it's just too expensive, what was the whole point of this tariff circus anyway? Washington's stuck in a loop of confusion. No one seems to know what the next move is. Remember when J.D. Vance said America would protect its workers and stop China from building a middle class off the backs of U.S. citizens? Well, guess what? China's doing exactly that, and they don't even need America anymore. Their middle class is thriving while U.S. farmers are watching their livelihoods vanish. We said this when the trade war began. You might be the United States, but the global market is a much bigger beast. If no one's buying your goods, industries crumble, plain and simple. Still, Vance insists America holds the winning hand. He once said it'd all depend on how China reacts. If Beijing goes too far, the US supposedly has more leverage. But if China's calm, Trump would be open to deal-making. He promised that no matter what, the president would defend America. Nice words, but here's the problem. Those so-called cards America's holding are backfiring one by one. The dollar was supposed to be Washington's ultimate weapon. But once it got weaponized under Biden and Bowman, that move shattered global trust. The rest of America's leverage depends on a paper-thin economy. An unstable, over-leveraged system that could fall apart with the slightest shock. China's power, meanwhile, is built on something much more real. Decades of control over the supply chains that fuel the modern world. You can't replace that in a few months. And now, Beijing's making bold moves, tightening export rules on lithium batteries and production equipment, basically saying, "You want alternatives? Good luck." Funny thing is, they learned this play straight from Trump's own book. He started the chip bans, and now China's turning that same strategy back on America. When it comes to semiconductors, China's only a few years behind and catching up fast. They've got the engineers, the money, and the materials to speed ahead. The US can't say the same about its battery industry. It's lagging badly. Just look at the delays in those new American EV factories like Hyundai's. Here's the truth. China's grip on the global battery chain is absolute. Around 80 to 90% of the essential parts, cathodes, anodes, cells, come from China. The rest of the world just can't fill that gap. South Korea, Japan, and Europe don't have the capacity, and buying from them would trigger Trump's own tariffs anyway. If China cuts off the West from critical battery tech, the EV future outside of China goes dark. Right now, and for the foreseeable future, China owns that field. And that kind of control is far more dangerous than US dollar sanctions. Because you can build financial systems, but you can't build global supply chains out of thin air. It would take trillions of dollars and more than a decade just to try. That's why Chinese automakers are set to dominate. Their costs are lower, their tech is ahead, and their reach is expanding across Europe, Asia, and beyond. Even if Trump forces Americans to buy homegrown EVs, that domestic market will max out quickly, especially when prices shoot up from high production costs. Meanwhile, BYD, the Chinese EV titan, has already overtaken Tesla. Last quarter, BYD delivered nearly 580,000 vehicles, while Tesla managed about 500,000. That gap is only growing. If China were to fully block battery exports, the ripple effects on the US economy would be massive. Trump would lose it completely, because the fallout would be impossible to contain. Think about it. If China shuts the battery pipeline, America would have to build its own from scratch. Insanely expensive, debt-fueled, and painfully slow. That means more deficit spending, more borrowing, and even more national debt. Add Trump's import tariffs on top and you've got a financial nightmare. The other option? US car companies just give up and move production to China. Tesla might even build another massive plant there. It's not like there are better options left. But despite all of this, Trump still sounds oddly confident. He keeps saying the US is stronger, that he and President Xi have a great relationship, that tariffs are America's secret weapon. He praises Xi as tough and smart, insisting the two will figure it out. But honestly, he's completely missing the mark. This trade war teaches one clear lesson. Never make promises you can't keep. Because when that bluff gets called, it's embarrassing. The world laughs and your credibility tanks. So what's next? Will China tighten the screws even harder and squeeze America through its battery dominance? Or will Trump finally drop his wild 100% tariff threats and face reality? Let me know what you think down below. Stay sharp, stay informed, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because the economic storm we're watching unfold is just getting started.